Hello there, I'm Dr. Jeanette Kavanagh, and I just want to introduce you to what we call the basic recipe of emotional freedom techniques. It's a technique that's so cleansing, so cathartic, and so easy to use that I end up using it with most of my clients. Today I'm going to demonstrate the basic recipe, and that's not my nomenclature, that's not the word I use, that's from Gary Craig himself, and at the bottom of this video you'll see the URL, the website to Gary Craig's website, emofree.com. And I'd encourage you to watch the rest of this video. It's only a couple of minutes long, but I want you desperately, absolutely, may I ask you, plead with you to go to Gary's website. He is the original creator of emotional freedom techniques. It's 20 years old this year. It's undergone a number of transformations, but the basis of it is still the same. It's still based on acupressure and acupuncture points, except that instead of using needles as acupuncturists and Chinese medical people will do, we just use fingers to tap on various energy meridians in our body. I love the idea. Gary Craig calls it the most copied healing therapy in the world, and I'm not so sure that it's copied, because one of the things that I've noticed, and one of the things you may notice if you go onto YouTube and onto the web to have a look at it, is that the actual 5 steps to emotional freedom techniques and the words used are beautifully, elegantly simple, and elegantly simple for the reason that that's what works. But most people have chosen to deviate from that. They're not copying what Gary Craig has given to the world very generously. They're actually making it their own, and maybe that's what humans do, and I'm not standing in judgment of them, but it's not so much copied as it is taken on by other people and often transformed. And I'm not sure that we necessarily improve something as basic and as wonderfully simple and elegant as this by making it a bit more complex. So let's get going. There are 5 steps to emotional freedom, and I mean freedom from emotions that disturb your peace. Either it's an emotional, the basis of emotional freedom techniques is that any negative emotion represents a disruption in the energy systems of your body. So that might manifest itself as a pain in your back or behind your ear or in your elbow. It can also manifest itself in terms of you not being able to do the sorts of things you want to be able to do in sport and other areas. And it may manifest itself as emotions that disturb your peace on a day-to-day level, and in fact keep you from being able to enjoy your life in that beautiful way you're meant to. The first step is quite simple. You just name your problem. When I say simple, I'm going to say that the problem we'll work on today is anxiety. And that's huge. That's so global, that has so many little facets and aspects to it, which we'll look at in another video. But I'm going to go in a little bit more specifically and say that we have anxiety about travelling by train, travelling by suburban train. So very specifically, maybe in peak hour and so on. But that's our problem, is that anxiety, that fear that arises in our body when we even think about having to go on a train. And some of you watching this video, haven't been on a train for so long, because the behaviour you manifest in response to the feelings that you have is avoidance. And it mightn't sound like a behaviour, but it is a behaviour to avoid something. So you've been avoiding travelling by train because it makes you feel so profoundly uncomfortable. That's step 1. Just name your problem. I have a profound fear of travelling on suburban trains. Point number 1. Point number 2, when you've said you have a profound fear, or I have a great fear, or I have a fear of travelling by suburban train, measure it. Now that's what Gary Craig calls the subjective unit of distress, and we all love acronyms, so we call that SUD. And it is subjective, so it's very difficult to say, is it 10 or is it 0? And 0 is, what are we talking about? I love travelling on suburban trains, so that's where it is, and we wouldn't be tapping on it if it was 0. But 10, 8, 7, a bit more difficult. But some people can say, and some of my clients say to me, what do you mean 10? It's 15 out of 10. It's just so horrifying. So just feel that as you're listening to me. Focus on what it is that you want to tap on, and it might not be for you, it might not be travelling by suburban trains, but it is for millions of people all over the world, so it's just something I chose. But you might be wanting to substitute your own set of circumstances that make you feel highly, highly anxious and get your adrenaline surging through your body so that you have all those symptoms of fear. And measure that, and if it's up there at an 8, let's say it's an 8 for the sake of this demonstration. It's up there at an 8, and that's the second. The third step in emotional freedom techniques is what's called the setup phrase. And the setup phrase is you're just setting up this problem. You're letting your energy systems know this is the problem I'm focusing on. I've got 1,000 other problems, but today I'm focusing on my heightened fear, my anxiety about travelling on suburban trains. And you do that very simply. Here's the karate chop point. It's the point between the end of your little finger and just where your wrist begins, and it's the fleshy part. And I often use just these 2 fingers, almost like a gun, to tap. And you can use these fingers too. So let's just notice you do this 3 times. Even though I have this fear of travelling by suburban trains, I truly and completely accept myself. Even though I have a fear of travelling on a suburban train, I truly and completely accept myself. Even though I have a fear of travelling on a suburban train, I truly and completely accept myself. And that's it. That's step 3. Step 4 is just a tap on the various tapping points. The first tapping point is on the top of the head, and you work out where that is. If you just drew a line between your ears and then drew another line between your nose and the back of your head, it's where those 2 lines would intersect. So it's pretty simple. It's just the top of your head. I use all 4 fingers to tap, and I tap around. Gary Craig suggests, and I'm going with Gary because he is the creator of EFT, and I don't need or want to change his protocol. He talks about the reminder phrase, and all you need to do, having done the setup, having set up the issue, all you need to do now is tap and say, my fear of being in suburban trains. That's it, simple. The next tapping point is just at the top of your eyebrows, and if you have one of those beautiful monobrows like my son, you go up the side of your nose and just around the socket of your eye, just on the top of your eyebrow there. So tap. Sometimes you can tap on both sides. I usually tap on my eyebrow just with one, and I tap with the pads of my finger. You tap enough so that you can feel it, but not enough so that you're hurting yourself. It's not just a gentle, tiny, weeny little whisper of a tap. It's a good tap. My fear of travelling by suburban train. And the next tapping point is if you just very gently feel the side of your eyeball and you feel the bone, your eye socket there, that's where you're tapping on. It's not over here, as some people do. It's right here on the side, and you can really only use 1 finger. I use 1 finger on each eye. My fear of travelling by suburban train. You can say it again if you like. My anxiety about travelling on the train. And then the next tapping point is just on the bone, but under your eye. And tapping again. You might find that that's a bit tender on one side of your face. That's fine. Just tap while you say the reminder phrase, which you now know. My fear about travelling by suburban train. And then the next tapping point is just between your nose and your top lip. My fear about travelling on the suburban train. And the next part on your face is just that little groove under your lip and between the bottom of your chin and your lip. It's called the chin point, but it's not actually on the chin. It's in there. My fear about travelling on a suburban train. The next point you find if you just go down the middle of your throat to that little just U shape where your collarbone comes together. And if you go down a little bit, maybe an inch or 2.5 centimetres and 2.5 centimetres to either side, they're the 2 main tapping point. So it's just a little bit down from your collarbone. It's called the collarbone spot. And I, for reasons that escape me, you can tap on one side, I always tap on two. My fear of travelling on suburban trains, my anxiety about travelling on the train. The last tapping point, I use the flat of my hand, and it's just under your arm. It's about 4 inches down from your armpit, and you're just tapping here. My fear about travelling on a suburban train, and that's it. The 5th and final step in emotional freedom techniques is just simply to measure again. So you started out at an 8, go back into a memory of travelling by train, into a projection of having to travel tomorrow or this afternoon. Go back into how that makes you feel, get as much of a sense of that feeling as you can, measure it again, and if it's gone down to a 7, fantastic. It might have even gone down to a 3. You just keep tapping. It's as easy as that. Isn't that wonderful? No pills to take, no books to read, and this video was only a few minutes long. Thank you for watching, and look out for the other ones.